Hey garden friends, today we're going to talk about one big mistake I made and I want to correct it so no one else makes that mistake. So we'll get to that in a minute, but also I'm going to talk about something that might be a bit controversial. This is something that's promoted widely, and from the recent data I have looked at, there could be a problem with it, and I wanted to make sure that you were aware of it so that you can decide on what you would like to do in that matter. All right. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and or share with your friends. Someone else may benefit from this information if it doesn't piss them off. First of all, my mistake. Last week, I took you on the journey of planting petunia seeds, and I tried something new. Now, I know better than to try something new with something as precious as my petunia seeds, because the ones I start from seed or started are on the rather pricier side. So if you're going to experiment with something, it shouldn't be when you're using something that costs you some dollars, right? So anyways, what it was, and I'll show you what happened. With the petunias, I added the neem seed meal to the soil, and in the first one I just added it in little spots. Well, here's what happened. Yeah, fungus. Fungus mold started to grow in there, which is not a good thing with seedlings. That was something, it kind of niggled at my brain, and I thought, maybe this isn't a good idea, because whenever you add something organic, it could do that. So I know better. Anyways, so don't do that. Now, I added it because it was supposed to help with fungus gnats. Now, it doesn't seem to have worked for the fungus gnats, because when I opened up my seed containers, fungus gnats flew out. So, but the neem seed meal is a good fertilizer. It's got a lot of nitrogen in it. So it's 612. So it's good. I can use it out in my garden, what have you. I don't even think I will use it on house plants. Number one, it didn't seem to work with the fungus gnats. And number two, even in here, I put it on top of some plants, and it's mildewing in here too, even though it's rather cold. So I am going to retire this until summer. I can use it out in the garden. And what I wanted to talk about was mycorrhizal fungi and the benefits and or detriments of it, adding it to your garden. Now, this may be, like I said before, controversial, because a lot of people, even growers, I've seen rose growers recommend it, putting it on the roots of the roses when you plant them, putting it in a planting hole. There's a lot of starter fertilizers that have it in it. You know what? I need to look. Let me look really quick and see if it's in my EB Stone Edna's Best. Because once it became a buzzword in the gardening community, everybody jumps on, starts adding it to their products. Therefore, they think the public will be clamoring for that item. Therefore, it'll make it more sellable. So it's more about marketing, really, than about science of growing. So let me look. So I'm going to read this to you. It says, regionally formulated in California, Arizona, and Nevada. Bark, aged redwood, sphagnum peat moss, pumice, earthworm casting, sand, feather meal, oyster shell, dolomite lime, bat guano, alfalfa meal, kelp meal, and wetting agents. So it contains other non-food ingredients, beneficial bacteria. Mycorrhizae. Yep, it's in there. Now, what is the mycorrhizal fungi? So, well, mycorrhizal fungi is mycorrhizae, let me see if I can say this correctly, is the relationship that is developed between plant roots and the fungi in your soil. So mycorrhizal is the fungi in the soil that creates that relationship. And how it works is the fungi has these like tentacles going throughout the soil, and it brings nutrients to the plant roots. It stretches further than plant roots do, and it's finer, so it can get between smaller particles of the soil and really draw up the nutrients for the plant roots to pull up into the plants. And they play a role with each other. The plants produce the sugars or whatever that feed the fungi, and the fungi turns around and creates the food from the soil microbes, etc., or the microbes. They all work together to feed the plants. The plants don't take up the nutrients very well without that relationship. They feed each other. So if that's the case, what's wrong with buying mycorrhizae to put into your soil, or the mycorrhizal fungi to put in your soil? Well, number one, there's tons, thousands of different types. If you have soil that weeds will grow in, grass, weeds, things you may not want, then your soil already has the fungi in it. You don't need to add more. So adding more not only could be detrimental, it's a waste of your money. Think of this. You could put that towards a nice plant or whatever that you want to add, or maybe put it towards an arbor or a greenhouse, something fun. Don't waste your money. Always go with what's going to fit your budget, what is necessary, absolutely necessary, and what's really going to benefit you in a major way. Manufactured mycorrhizae is only like a few of the types, whereas your garden has hundreds, maybe even thousands of types of fungi that is native to it. And each one is specialized for specific plants. That just amazes me. So these manufactured ones, how can you be sure they're the right ones for your plants? So here's another concern. They are sensitive to heat. Just think about this. They could be stored in a hot garden center, maybe even in a greenhouse if they are trying to keep things out of the weather, or on a truck. Those trucks are not insulated, the ones that they haul this stuff on. So when it arrives or when you go to purchase it, all the fungi could be dead. In fact, the ones tested in their research paper I was reading, there was no live fungi in the products. Therefore, buying it, putting it into the potting soil, it was worthless and just a waste of space in the potting soil where something else beneficial could have been, and or a waste of your money if you're buying the pure. I think it comes in a white powdery form. You can get just the fungi by itself, not in a potting soil, and then they say to add it, rub it on the roots of plants, etc. So it's a waste. Another problem, if they are alive by some miracle, did you know that many of these are sourced from foreign, faraway areas? Now, the natural fungi there isn't natural for your area, and it can actually interfere with the natural fungi in your own soil. I may have mentioned this already, to do what it's supposed to do. And therefore, you're not accelerating or enhancing plant growth. You're actually slowing it down or interfering with it. Therefore, it has to struggle to make the connections in the soil that it needs to make, which is totally counter to what you are wanting the mycorrhizal fungi to do that you may be purchasing. So why do so many growers, potting soil manufacturers, and others promote and or use mycorrhizal fungi in their products? It's marketing. Because mycorrhizal fungi, people have said, oh, this is beneficial, it needs to be in the soil, the more the merrier. No, that's marketing. They want you to spend your dollars there, and or they haven't learned the latest data or read about it and the testing and whatever. They just, okay, this has to be good, therefore we are going to add it. And that's not necessarily true and or beneficial. As I said, it could be detrimental to your natural home grown fungi. When you dig up a plant and at the roots for whatever reason, and you see all this little white like spiderwebby stuff, that is the natural fungi in your soil. And that is what you want. But you don't want to add something that's going to battle against it doing its job, which is what could be happening when you add a foreign mycorrhizal fungi to your soil. I think that bears repeating, so I'm sure I'm going to say it many times here. And I just want you to know that because many, many reputable people say to use it. I know I watch a garden show that's famous worldwide, and he shows himself rubbing it on the root ball of a rose before he plants it to encourage the roots to grow. And yeah, you just did the opposite. So maybe he hasn't done the research. Maybe he hasn't been educated on the latest data, and therefore he thinks he's helping. And that's okay. But you've got to be mindful of your own garden and what you're putting into it. And don't listen to me. Don't listen to other garden bloggers or vloggers or garden shows or garden magazines. Look to the data, the research that's actually been done. Now, I have a blog post on this, and I will link to the documented data that is out there, the research that shares some of this information with you and shows what has happened in testing with these products. So you can look at that too. YouTube doesn't like me pointing to my blog because they want you to stay on YouTube, but I think it's important enough to you know that I am actually looking things up and not just flying off on some tangent. So in essence, there's no real reason to buy mycorrhizal fungi or products with it in it. Now, if there is a product like this, I'm pretty sure this has been through my soil, potting soil I'm pointing to down there. The whole wide range of temperatures, getting transferred, I think that stuff's dead. I don't think there's any fear of it causing a problem out in my garden. And because I'm starting seeds with it and or potting up plants indoors or in my containers, I don't think there's a real fear. There's no real fear for me of it disturbing my natural fungi that I know is prevalent out there, because when I go to dig something up, that white stuff, that white spiderwebby stuff is there, and it is massive. So like I said, I'm not worried about it being in this product. So what can you do to promote the natural occurring mycorrhizal fungi in your soil? That's what we're going to talk about next. So to encourage the growth of the fungi, add mulches, natural mulches. Avoid the ones that are dyed, because that could interfere with the good stuff in your soil, because it's chemically based. So get natural occurring, whether it's leaves, there's bark mulches that are, you have to make sure you look at the packaging, especially from big box stores, make sure it hasn't been dyed or no products added to it. So wood chips, bark, leaves, other mulching. I got some finely shredded straw. Those type of things are fine, and that will help the fungi to grow in the soil below. So cultivate a variety of plants. There are some that are known to promote fungal growth in the soil, and there are different types of fungi that needs to be grown. So diversify, look up what promotes the growth in the soil. And also one tip I want to add right here, I think I'll add it again later or talk about it again later, is when you go to clean up your garden, don't pull plants out. If they're dead, annuals or what have you, just cut them off at the soil level, because their roots have already established a rapport with the soil organisms, including the fungi, and you want them to stay there. You're pulling them out, you're disturbing all of that. They will rot away through the winter, and if you leave them, just cut them off in the spring, they will still rot away. They will not hurt or compete with the plants you're going to be planting there next. So with perennials, of course you're not going to pull them up because they're perennial and they're going to come back. But I was just making sure, like even with other crops, like in the garden, that at the end of the year people want to just pull it out, clean it out. You really want to keep your ground covered, either with a mulch, with the plants that are there. I believe in the chop and drop method, where I just chop plants back in small increments, let them fall to the soil below, and that encourages all the good organisms and the fungi. If you leave the ground bare, weeds will come. Weeds are not necessarily your enemy. The soil is trying to tell you, we want something here. We want something growing. Therefore, cover the soil. It helps with erosion. It helps with so many things, but don't leave it bare. You could also use cover crops if you want. Those are really great. Oh, and for heaven's sakes, stop using any chemicals. That's pesticides, herbicides, what have you, even like vinegar and things like that, because it disturbs or kills the good fungi, etc., in the soil. You may be taking care of a plant above the soil, but it all starts with soil health. Good, healthy plants, the pests are not attracted to. I'm going to say that again. Good, healthy plants, the pests are not attracted to. It has all to do with the Brix level in the leaves and all of that. That's a whole nother subject. But you want good soil health so you have the best plant health. And that will mitigate a lot of your pest problems. So this back to the other one where I had said I probably would mention it again. Limit soil disturbance. That's digging, that's pulling plants out, that's all kinds of things that when you do that, you're disturbing the healthy fungi and beneficials in the soil. And they have to start over. So limit very much the disturbance by all of those actions. You know, I do dig a hole to put a plant in, all of those things, and I'm not totally, I would say I'm not really, I don't till like with a rototiller or anything, because that definitely disturbs and cause problems with your soil. But if I need to plant a plant, I'll take a trowel, dig a hole. I'll use a dibbler if it's a smaller size plant. You know, a dibbler, I'll show you mine. Someone made this. It was so neat. This was a post from a stairway. And look at, he turned it into a soil dibbler, and you just push it down to the soil. If you have good soil and you've amended it and you've gotten it to the right consistency, just poking this down, it'll go down right into your soil. You put your new plant in there and you are good to go. You don't have to dig anything up. So limit soil disturbance. Compost, organic matter. That's another wonderful thing. Now, homemade compost is probably the best. You can purchase compost like from city landfills and what have you, but it's not always the best quality. Now, to use that kind of compost, mulch with it in the fall, and that'll give a chance for it to incorporate and all of that. I guess there's a limit to the nutrients in that kind of compost. Now, the compost I buy in bulk is from a local organic turkey ranch. And so I feel, and has been beneficial, and they even show tests, side-by-side tests of garden beds, one that's been treated with it and one that has not. And there's a dramatic difference. So I think the mulch or the compost I buy in bulk is of good high quality, but I know not everybody has access like that. So if at a nursery or garden center or whatever they have bulk compost you can buy, ask them where they get it. And, or you could even have it tested to see if it has high nutrients. But if you're just going to use it as a mulch, then go for it. And just know that it probably won't have all the nutrients you might be looking for. Compost is a slow release fertilizer, really a good compost. But do your bit in composting for yourself, and you'll find it highly beneficial. Especially, I compost most of my plants that I in the fall cut back, etc. Because there's so many of them that I can't just chop and drop. I'm going through, and a lot I leave until the spring for winter interest and for the beneficial insects, but there's a lot that I still cut back as well, and or during the summer. Sometimes it's just easier to cut a big piece off, throw it in the compost bin rather than chop and drop, but I do a lot of chop and drop. Now, if you don't know what chop and drop means, it means the plant could be this high. I chop, 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 chop in pieces. I let all those pieces fall to the ground. It is not the tidiest looking thing, but my plants are so closely planted together, you can't see the mess on the ground. So if you're one that plants your plants very far apart, then it might not be for you. you just might want to gather them up and put them in your compost bin. Let's talk about cover crops. Cover crops are fantastic. I happen to love buckwheat, crimson clover, whatever. If you have a bare patch that you want to improve the soil in, improve the natural fungi in, plant a cover crop. Just beware that some of them, if they go to seed, they can become a problem plant. They are very hardy, very prolific. Now, buckwheat will winter kill here. I'm a zone 8B, and we have some cold winters that are for a long period of time. So, I mean, it's cold for a long period of time. It's not like we have, a few nights at a ridiculously low temperature. So, look into cover crops. I'm going to be doing some more blog posts and even some videos on cover crops in the future. So, you can stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, you can go do your research on, good organic cover crops for improving the soil and or the fungi in it. I got something making a noise over there. So, proper watering techniques. That's very important too, because you could actually drown them if you're over watering, and you don't want that. Plus, it's not healthy for your plants. So find the right balance, the proper watering for the plant, for the area. If you're getting a lot of rain, that can just wash everything away too. So that's where the cover crops really come in handy, and the mulch. So by implementing all of these practices, you will build the natural fungi in your soil that will help your plants and your garden thrive without adding in something that actually might be contrary to what you're trying to achieve. So I really hope you enjoyed this bit of information I'm giving you. You learned from it. I inspired you to go really do your research and save money to boot, because buying something like that is unnecessary, and therefore you don't have to spend your money there. Also, I have a blog post coming up, and I'll also do a video on starter fertilizers and why you may or may not want to use them.